Get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome board members and guests to the Wednesday, June 24th, 2020 meeting of the South Placer Regional Transportation Authority. We're conducting this meeting via teleconference under Executive Order N-29-20, approved by Governor Newsom on March 17th, 2020. We appreciate your participation and patience with this technology. A recording of this meeting will be posted to our website after the meeting. In regards to public comment, there will be multiple opportunities throughout the meeting for public comment. When I open an item up for public comment, please use the raise hand function to indicate that you would like to make a public comment on this item. If you're joining the webinar on your computer, you can do so by clicking the raise hand button on the middle bottom of the Zoom webinar window. If you are joining over the phone, you can do so by pressing *9. SPRTA staff will then call out individuals who have raised their hand, giving them permission to speak one by one. When you are called, please state your full name and city of residence for the record. You will then have a maximum of 3 minutes to provide your public comment, and SPRTA staff will notify you when your 3 minutes are up. If you experience technical difficulties and are unable to provide your public comment, please email your comment to Salvi Sobol, our clerk, at sabol@pctpa.net. Regarding board action, because this meeting is being conducted via teleconference, all votes will be roll call votes. Board members, we ask that you state your name prior to making a motion or seconding a motion for the record. Once an item has been moved and seconded, I will request the clerk call the roll to vote. Thank you everyone for your cooperation. Could we please stand for the flag salute? Salvi, do you want to lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Salvi. Okay. We'll move on to the next item, and that's roll call. Could you please take the roll, Salvi?
Allard.
Here.
Broadway.
Here.
Joyner.
Here.
Euler.
Here. Better, Paul?
Yes.
Much.
That's what we like to hear.
Well, the coffee kicked in.
Okay. The next item is approval of the minutes from the May 27th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Broadway will move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Salvi, could you call the roll, please?
Allard.
Yes.
Broadway.
Yes.
Joyner.
Yes.
Euler.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is agenda review. We have before us the agenda as presented. Any questions or concerns or additions? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented. Joyner.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Salvi, could you call the roll, please?
Allard.
Yes.
Broadway.
Yes.
Joyner.
Yes.
Euler.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The next item is public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on an item that is not on today's agenda? Salvi, do we have any public comment at this time?
Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no public comment on items not on the agenda.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the item F, which is public hearing, South Placer Regional Transportation and Air Quality Mitigation Fee Program Inflationary Adjustment for 2020. And Luke, you've got this one?
Yeah. Good morning, Chair Allard and members of the board. Luke McNeil-Caird, Deputy Executive Director. This item is being continued from our May SPRTA board meeting. The inflation adjustment for 2020 is 2.88% as shown in attachment 1. And if the board approves, it would go into effect July 1st, 2020. A notice was previously published in the local newspaper, and we are requesting the board to continue the public hearing. Approval of the attached resolution 20-02 requires unanimous vote of the SPRTA board. The technical advisory committee has concurred, and I just want to report from last meeting, we did have a public comment and I talked to Jeff Short at the North State Building Industry Association, and they have no objection to going forward with the annual inflation adjustment at this time. And just so you know, the Tier 2 fee will also be updated to reflect the same inflation adjustment. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Luke. So do board members have any questions for Luke about this item?
No.
No.
Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open up to public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to comment on item F?
We had a member of the public raise their hand and then unraise it. If you would like to make a public comment at this time, please do so by clicking the raise hand button or dialing *9. Okay, I am seeing no public comment at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I'll close public comment on this item and bring it back to the board. Board, what's your wishes?
Joiner, move approval of the item.
Broadway will second.
Okay, the item's been moved and seconded. Can we have roll call, please?
Allard,
Yes.
Broadway,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Euler.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item G, which is the FY 2020-2021 administrative budget. Luke, you have this one as well?
So staff is requesting board approval of the fiscal year 2020-21 budget for administration of SPRTA. The budget includes funding for staff and a consultant contract to begin a comprehensive traffic model and fee program update. And Mike talked about this a little bit at the PCTPA board. The request for proposals is planned to be released in July of this year, as discussed with the Technical Advisory Committee, and we will bring it to the board for approval later this year. Just note the budget also includes legal and other accounting services as needed. Just looking back, SPRTA has been around 19 years, and administrative costs have averaged just under $80,000 annually. Back when we started this program, $3 million was allocated to administration, so about $150,000 per year over 20 years. So we are going to take a look as part of the comprehensive update of whether we need to adjust those administrative costs since we're coming up on 20 years. I'll just note the Technical Advisory Committee has recommended board approval of the administrative budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Luke. Board, do you have any questions for Luke about this item?
Nope.
Seeing no questions, I'll go ahead and open up item G to public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for action.
Move approval.
Broadway second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Allard,
Yes.
Broadway,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Euler.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Selby. We'll move on to the next item, which is item H, Regional Transportation Air Quality Mitigation Fee Allocation Request and establishing an administrative process for right-of-way acquisition for Highway 65 widening. Luke?
Thank you, Chair. So there's kind of two components to this. I'm first going to talk about an allocation for mitigation, and then secondly, talk about right-of-way for the project. So in March of 2018, both state and federal environmental documents were certified for the Highway 65 widening project. And this project, of course, includes widening Highway 65 to 6 lanes between Interstate 80 and Blue Oaks Boulevard and auxiliary lanes between interchanges all the way to Lincoln. After approval of the environmental document, a lawsuit was filed by Sierra Club. Since that time, a settlement agreement has been reached that includes PCTPA seeking funding to implement the South Placer Transit projects. So staff is requesting today board action in resolution 20-05 to allocate $600,000 for local match to pursue $6 million for purchase of electric buses for half-hour service between Lincoln, Roseville, and Watt Avenue Light Rail Station. And just so you know, this allocation would come out of the Highway 65 widening project. The second action that you have involves a temporary construction easement for phase 1 of the Highway 65 widening project. And maybe I should stop and just make sure there weren't any questions on the mitigation before I continue. Sorry.
Board, do you have any questions for Luke about the first part of this presentation?
I have none.
Okay, I'll continue on.
Okay.
So as I was mentioning, the temporary construction easement for phase 1 of the Highway 65 widening project, I do want to know that this item and the next item for the I-80 auxiliary lanes is a new frontier for SPRTA and PCTPA. This is the first time that we will take the lead on right-of-way for projects. But I do want to note we do have experience, of course, through SPRTA. We have previously purchased property with our office here at Nevada Station. For the Highway 65 widening project, we have Jacobs as the lead consultant, and Brenda Shrimp from Bender Rosenthal is the sub-consultant working on right-of-way, and she is actually on the call in case you have specific questions about the process. The private property is located on southbound Highway 65 between Pleasant Grove Boulevard and Galleria Boulevard. Staff is requesting board action on Resolution 20-06 to allow the executive director to cause appraisals to be prepared and reviewed, just compensation to be set, and negotiations with the property owner to proceed. Final agreements would come before the board to authorize approval. So I do want to just take a second here. Obviously, with the board action earlier to delay the sales tax to 2022, the Highway 65 widening project will need to be delayed. And it is unlikely we would move forward with this right away until construction funding is identified. But we would still like to request the board to delegate the authority to the executive director. With that, the SPRTA TAC concurs with both board actions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Luke. Any questions from the board regarding this item?
No questions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to comment on item H?
Yes, we have one member of the public who wishes to comment.
Okay.
Mike Gerbedian, you should be able to speak at this time. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Mike Garabedian with Placer County Tomorrow. Question, is my sound coming through my laptop or my phone at this time? Well, I'll assume you're hearing me.
We are.
I'm commenting on the second part only of this. There is no way that adding the 8 and 6 lanes could contribute to reducing air pollution. Actually, adding these lanes will increase vehicle miles traveled, increase greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. It is a misuse of air quality mitigation funds. The policy brief on congestion that by the Institute, the Transportation Institute at UC Davis, has done the research. It is peer-reviewed research, and the myth that that PCTPA and the South SPRTA keep foisting on the public that congestion is going to be relieved by the lane increases and so forth is simply false and not particularly responsible. So the tens of thousands of units that have already been entitled subject us to a nightmare of congestion in the future that will not be relieved, only be made worse by adding lanes. So fortunately, there is some effort to try to find alternative ways to deal with this. So this is really the wrong way to a big mistake to say that these are mitigation funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any other public comment?
There is no other public comment at this time.
Okay, I'll close public comment on this item and bring it back to the board for final action.
I would think we need to do these separately, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-05 to allocate $600,000 of regional transportation and air quality mitigation fees to the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency as mitigation for the Highway 65 widening project.
Second.
Broadway will second.
Okay, the first item has been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Okay, here we go. Allard,
Yes.
Broadway,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Euler.
Aye.
Motion to adopt resolution 2020-06, establishing an administrative process for right-of-way acquisition related to the Highway 65 widening Phase 1 project.
Second.
Okay, roll call,
Okay.
please.
Allard,
Yes.
Broadway,
Yes, sorry.
that's okay. Joyner, Joyner,
You didn't get it?
yep, oh, sorry, yep.
Aye.
Euler,
Aye.
okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the next item, which is item I, Regional Transportation and Air Quality Mitigation Fee Allocation Request and establishing an administrative process for right-of-way acquisition for I-80 auxiliary lanes. And David, this one's yours.
Good morning. So we have two actions today that we're requesting the SPRTA board to do. First one is to adopt a resolution to allocate $400,000 of regional transportation and air quality mitigation fees to PCTPA to complete the final design and right-of-way acquisition for the I-80 aux lanes project. Your second action today is to adopt a resolution to establish an administrative process for right-of-way acquisition related to the aux lanes project. Just by way of background, the fee program includes funding for on-ramp improvements at the I-80 Douglas Boulevard, and those on-ramp improvements are partially included in the I-80 aux lanes project, particularly that particular part of the project, which adds a fifth lane, westbound fifth lane from east of Douglas Boulevard to west of Riverside Avenue in Roseville. So there are two components, two actions today for the SPRTA board, and the first one is the design and right-of-way allocation process for members that were part of the PCTPA board agenda. You know, PCTPA is the implementing agency for the environmental design and right-of-way phases for the auxiliary lanes project, and Caltrans will administer what's called the AAA process, the advertise, award, and administration of the construction of the project. And this process requires additional design and coordination services with Caltrans. The design issues relate to utilities and drainage infrastructure issues. Funding is also required for right-of-way to complete the right-of-way acquisition process. And so the total is $400,000, $200,000 for the final design and $200,000 for the right-of-way component. And this will allow PCTPA to complete both the final design and right-of-way phase for the aux lanes project. I'll stop there to see if there's any questions on that particular.
Okay, thank you, David. Board, do you have any questions for David regarding this item?
No questions.
Okay, that's good. And so the second component here is similar to the Highway 65 agenda item that Luke had presented. We're requesting the board to establish an administrative process for right-of-way acquisition for the auxiliary lanes project. The auxiliary lanes project impacts one privately owned parcel near Douglas Boulevard, two parcels owned by the city of Roseville, and one parcel that's a sliver of China Garden Road owned by the city of Rockland. Exhibits are attached that provide general information regarding the project needs on each particular property. So the project, we're at the point where we need to initiate the right-of-way acquisition process. Construction is anticipated to begin summer of 2021, and working backwards on the schedule, now's the time to start the right-of-way phase. And the attached resolution authorizes the executive director to take actions with respect to that right-of-way phase, basically allowing the executive director to cause appraisals to be prepared and reviewed, just compensation to be set, and negotiations with property owners to proceed. Final agreements would come before the SPRTA board, of course, for approval. And this was item both on the final design and right-of-way acquisition allocation, as well as the right-of-way administrative process was reviewed with the SPRTA Technical Advisory Committee, and they concurred with the staff recommendation. And so we're recommending the board take action with respect to the two resolutions today. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, David. Does the board have any questions for David on these two items?
No questions.
No questions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open up item I for public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, I'm seeing no public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board for action.
Through the chair, I'll go ahead and do these separately again. Motion to adopt resolution 20-07 to allocate $400,000 of regional transportation and air quality mitigation fees to Placer County Transportation Planning Agency to complete designs of the right-of-way acquisition for I-80 Auxiliary Lanes project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Could we have roll call, please?
Allard, oh, sorry, Allard,
Yes.
Broadway,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Euler.
Aye.
Motion to adopt resolution 20-08 establishing an administrative process for right-of-way acquisition related to the I-80 Auxiliary Lanes project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Allard,
Yes.
Broadway,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Euler.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item J, Placer Parkway Phase 1 update. Mike?
Good morning, Chair and members of the SPRTA board. The board requested at their last meeting that we bring back to the board today an update on the status of Placer Parkway Phase 1. As you will recall, Placer Parkway is a key component of our regional roadway system and our traffic model. The alignment of the Placer Parkway, which goes from Whitney Ranch Parkway all the way over to Sankey Road in Sutter County. That alignment was approved back in the early 2000s, and environmental review, both NEPA and CEQA, completed in a very large public process back in the early 2000s, and we are at the point where we are in the implementation phase of the first phase of this project. The implementation phase, goes from the Whitney Ranch Parkway to Foothills Boulevard, and Placer County, being the lead agency for this phase of the project, has been working very hard over the last few years to bring it to a point of being able to construct the project. Rich Moorhead with Placer County Public Works is on the Zoom conference here today, and will present a update of where they are at with design and getting the project ready for construction. So Rich, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Rich Moorhead with the Department of Public Works. Just to touch a little bit on that history as well. So that obviously Mike was talking about the Tier 1 corridor analysis that was done. In addition to that, I think we're all aware there was a Tier 2 fee MOA executed with that was put on as a flat fee on all new development as part of board members. And then it was around 2011 we started talking about getting this first phase moving forward. So we had the corridor identified, but we needed construction level clearance from the environmental standpoint. And there was a talk about who to take that on. The county took the lead on that in 2011. Got project level clearance in 2015 for CEQA. NEPA was delegated to Caltrans. That was done in 2017. Then in 2017, and that was done with allocation from SPRTA. It was about $2 million to complete that process. Subsequent to that, the county continued to move forward to do the final design for Placer Parkway, and advance funded $6 million towards that. So where we sit today, we're at 95% design. We did have permits ready to pull, and they still are ready to pull, I suppose, but without additional funding in place, we were unable to execute those agreements for the mitigation banks and mitigation fees that would be required. At this point, we do believe we'll have to do a little bit of refreshing, or at least review of the environmental documents. Typically not a big deal, but that does take a little bit of time and money. Right-of-way appraisals were done in November of 2019, but again, we weren't able to go forward with offers and negotiations on that right-of-way without sufficient funding. And I'll talk about that funding agreement that was put together here in the next portion of this. So those right-of-way appraisal will need to be refreshed and updated as well before we go out and start negotiating with property owners. And we need to complete that too to finish our work with PG&E. They need easements to move their transmission lines into outer Rio Bravo. So again, with PG&E, they're going to at a point here where we won't be able to continue forward much with them as well. And we do continue to work with the railroad on that. So the county and the United Indian community, Auburn Indian community, got together on how to fund this portion of the Parkway, the phase 1 of the Parkway. We came to an agreement between the county and UIAC. And once that agreement was in place, we wanted to make sure there was a funding agreement or reimbursement agreement in place with the SPRTA partners as well. We've all moved forward with various advanced fundings of projects, but this is substantially more than any of us have done in the past. But the basics of the agreement that's in place or will be in place and executed with the tribe is there's a $9 million UIAC non-reimbursable amount that will be contributed. The only caveat to that is if for some reason they are subject to tier 2 fees in the future, that would be credited. So as it stands today, it would be $9 million of just grants and non-reimbursable. $15 million from the UIAC would be reimbursable, and that would be out of the tier 2 fee as we collect it. The balance of the money would come from the county, being the advanced funding, and reimburse that. We brought in a separate agreement. Once we worked out the details with the tribe on how to fund it, we brought a separate agreement to the SPRTA TAC starting back early last year, and through several iterations got to a point where from a staff level and the councils, from the jurisdictional staff level and councils, we worked through all the technical portions of that agreement, and we brought it back to the SPRTA TAC in February of this year for the final agreement. And at that point, we were told by one of the SPRTA members that they're not comfortable signing the agreement. So we are getting to a point, as I was talking about the right-of-way, the permitting issues, and we're almost complete with design. Without funding, we're going to not be able to move forward with the project. As it is, it's been delayed a little bit, but so we're here just, that's the point we are at today, and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Any questions from the board regarding the presentation or the project?
No.
No.
So I guess, Richard, my question is, with the funding that has been committed by the Auburn area Indian community, what's the status of moving forward with that portion of the project?
Well, without all of the funding in place, we can't move forward with the project. The project total cost is in the $70 million range now. So it's a full funding package, and absent the agreement with the SPRTA partners, the other agreement wouldn't be, I suppose it could be ultimately executed, but wouldn't be followed through with until we have a funding agreement or reimbursement agreement in place with the SPRTA funding partners. So we can't just take a portion of the money and do part of the work.
Okay, so what's the hang up? I must be missing something.
We were told by one of the members at the TAC that they were not comfortable signing the agreement. So the hang up is just waiting, or the agreement between the SPRTA members and to sign the agreement guaranteeing essentially reimbursement back to the county and the tribe for advanced allocation of funding for Parkway.
So John, maybe I can dive into this a little bit. I'm not an expert on this by any means. My understanding is that the City of Lincoln staff has a concern over signing that agreement, in part, I think, related to the current Tier 2 fees. And so there's some hesitancy in that. I think we're comfortable with the notion, and Mike brought it up during PCTPA's meeting, that there would be a new traffic model done. I think, Mike, in our conversation yesterday, the last truly comprehensive traffic model done was had a 19 in front of it, not a 20, if I'm not mistaken. And that moving off of that traffic model we would then revisit those tier 2 fees. I think that if I understand correctly, that's the direction staff is wanting to move in. And I would hope that we could possibly direct SPRTA staff to somehow memorialize that intent and maybe bring it back at our next meeting. And I would hope that that would add a level of comfort for my staff to be able to move forward from there.
Mike, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think we've been working very closely with Lincoln staff, with the city manager and the public works director to try to find a way to move forward with this. And we have no problem in either in memorializing the intent to update the model. Certainly, we can't predict what the end product is going to be, but certainly the process to really put everything back on the table and renegotiate the tier 2 fee is something that between the SPRTA TAC, all of the staff agree that it needs to be done. And it takes about 1.5 years, but we'd be happy to either memorialize it in the actual agreement for the funding agreement, or to put it in a separate resolution of the SPRTA board. In either direction, we think that that's a appropriate direction to move forward to, and we would recommend to the board that we move in that manner.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful.
Thank you for the clarification, Mike. This project is so critically important to the South County, not just South County. I mean, this is critically important to the whole transportation network in the state on the West Coast as 80 continues to get more and more ingested. And anyway, I wanted clarification because I was hearing noises about, there was a problem with the funding, and the tribe had proposed a certain amount of money and things were held up. So I appreciate the clarification. I think it's really important that our four jurisdictions continue to work together on this critical project. If there's work that needs to be done at the staff level to make sure we're all, rowing in the same direction, I think we need to do that because it is critical.
Agreed.
So this is an information only item. I guess what I should do is I probably should open it up for public comment if there's any public comment. Kathleen, do we have any public comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, we have no comment at this time.
You said no public comment?
Correct. No.
Okay, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the board. So Mike, do you get a sense that you have some direction from the board? Would you like it to look clarified a little bit, or are you good with what you have?
No, I think we're comfortable with direction to memorialize the intent to update the SPRTA tier 1 and tier 2 fees. It's just we have to work with our legal staff to determine what's the most feasible method to do that. We'll do that and bring it back to your next meeting.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. And thank you, Richard, for your presentation and your participation. We appreciate it.
Okay, happy to do it.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is the Executive Director's Report. Mike?
I have nothing separate from the director's report that was done in the PCTPA meeting at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to board direction to staff. Does the board have any direction to provide at this time?
No.
Okay. There were informational items in your packet that you can review at your leisure. I'll just clarify for everybody. So I found out the earthquake was centered in Lone Pine, which is east of Fresno, southeast of Fresno, and it was a 5.8. So we felt it up here in Sonora, north of Sonora. So anyway. Okay, so if there's nothing further to come before this board, I guess I'll just say we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your participation, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.